Previously on Spies Like Us.
Welcome back to Spies Like Us. This is part 2 of our Miss Sloane episode, and if you're not already familiar with the film, you might want to go back and give part 1 a listen. While you're at it, you might want to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast app so that you can always stay caught up with us.
That said, if you do choose to just jump on in right here in the middle, that's fine with us as well. Just give a quick recap. Famed and fearsome lobbyist Elizabeth Sloane has traded sides and taken up a truly David versus Goliath political battle against the NRA. Along the way, we see both sides of this lobbying fight resorting to straight up espionage tactics with no holds barred. Sloane is about to lock horns in a televised debate with the chief strategist of the opposing side as we return to the plot and the briefing of this episode of Spies Like Us. That's right.
Not the debate. Sloane goes back and forth with Connors, with talking about gun deaths and the Constitution, and at some point it develops into Sloane basically shitting all over the Constitution, comparing it to a horoscope. And you can watch the good guy team kind of disparaging and freaking out what's going on, and it's really kind of disconcerting. And then Sloane outs Esme Manouchian, and this is a big deal because we kind of see it as we're watching it as things are going badly. We later find out that this is probably part of Sloane's ploy. And so, plus 5 points on throwing the debate. But I'm going to make this my number 1 worst tradecraft. And again, it was really hard for us to get some bad tradecraft. But her throwing the debate, I'm not sure why this was necessary. Because even if she wants to out Esme for her involvement in a high school shooting, to make her the big messiah of gun control, I don't think she needed to throw the debate. So I'm not exactly sure why, but I think Todd and I had discussed this, and it was so that the bad guy team would attack her. And later we find out she says to Merlin that this was just a shell strategy so they would come after me type of thing, because she has other big plans. But I'm not exactly sure why it was necessary, but I'm just going to go with it. And again, it was really tough, but I think this was a big hit for their campaign. But she outs Esme as being one of the survivors of a big high school shooting that Esme had hid, and as we discussed earlier, she had brought out in that dinner meeting they had. But one thing I did want to point out is after this moment, Esme starts going through a bunch of interviews, and they always get her name wrong. They always call her Esme Manchurian. And she corrects them and says, Esme Manouchian.
I totally did not catch this.
And this is a big deal. And this is why we brought up Robert Ford earlier, because we think the director or writer might have put these names in on purpose. Because for those of you who've seen The Manchurian Candidate, this is apparently a saying, what one definition is that it's a puppet by the enemy power being used unwittingly or wittingly to create disloyalty or corruption or whatever. I looked up a different definition, and it's just a person unknowingly being convinced to act towards some interest. So I think it was kind of like a cute film thing that Esme is the puppet being used. And even Sloane mispronounces her name when she asks her to outsource her social corrections. But later in the film, you hear Sloane correctly pronouncing it. So this is definitely I'm gonna give plus director or writer points for this little cute little detail that they've thrown in there.
I love it.
Yeah. But anyway, moving on. After that, Merlin obviously confronts Sloane about throwing the debate. What are you doing, pissing all over the Constitution? Damn it, Sloane! This is exactly what the NRA wants. They want you to shit all over the Constitution. Damn it, Sloane. in a much more subtle way. I'm really pushing this damn it Sloane thing. But anyway, but this is
I
where
love it.
Sloane. But this is where Sloane reveals her big plot to Merlin and reveals that she's left him out of the whole plot. That she, when she was missing for a little bit of time, had acquired to her pack, apparently, that she created her own pack, got all of these women's groups and feminist groups and mothers groups and wives groups to donate $15 million in less than a quarter.
And this doesn't come entirely out of left field. The movie did give us like some little tips on this. We did see her meet with a certain senator who was like very skeptical and saying like, why would you be coming to me on this? You've been on the opposite side of my side of the fight.
Didn't she say
on
like
all
the only
these
thing you're
other
missing
issues.
is a penis? Yeah, she's like the only thing she says to Sloane, the only thing you're missing is a penis. You've never been feminist, like
Right, yeah, exactly. But Sloane, again, it's like it's just a clue that this is the block, the voter block that Sloane is going to, and we also got like there was a little tip off of like Merlin kind of like saying like, well, what was this thing? I just got a thank you from the like women in law enforcement for a dinner that wasn't on the schedule, and she just kind of blows him off. But this is where she confirms to him like, yeah, I've been running around getting the women up, because the whole thing, and this ties back to part of the reason that she was so pissed off about being approached by the gun lobby is the gun lobby specifically was saying to her, you know who our weak point is? You know who we don't have? It's women. You could get us women. You could get women into guns. That was the proposal that was made to her, that she like was completely like, no, fuck this.
Yeah.
But in this conversation, she confirms that was part of her thinking. She was like, you know what? That guy had a point. The NRA does have a weak side. It's women. So I went and got the women. And I got women to contribute $15 million, which I don't pay that much attention to, like quarterly, lobbying fund pack things. But apparently in the context of this movie, raising $15 million in less than a quarter is surprising. And that's important because...
Well, especially for the new firm that she's working for, because I remember they got a donation of $50,000 and they were like, that's more than our budget, or $500,000, and it was like more than their... So $15 million is way out of this like firm's league.
And part of the reason this is like always like we didn't put this tack in, but this has always been like a kind of a David versus Goliath kind of story, because the NRA is famously just has like infinitely deep pockets. They're one of the most, like gun legislation is so overwhelmingly favored by the voters of this country, but it just can't get through because the gun lobby will just pour massive amounts of money into like primary challenges and campaigns, and just basically like just strong arm legislators.
Yeah.
So, and also the filing date is important because like it's quarterly. Every quarter, everyone has to say how much money they've raised. This is because you have to file it, and like certain ethics laws are in place to make sure you're not getting money from, although that's just been fucking shredded over the last 10 years. But
the super PAC, yeah.
But technically, like every 3 months, like everyone has to file how much money they raised and from where. And that also means that in this game of chess of lobbying, every 3 months, everyone gets to see what the enemy has. Right. And you have to tell the enemy what you have just because of these rules. That's not the purpose of the rules. The purpose of the rules is to make sure nothing shady is going on. But a result of the rules is every 3 months, everyone in Washington gets to know like what everyone's financial situation is. So raising this $15 million all within a single quarter is like huge because it's going to surprise the fuck out of the enemy.
Yeah, really big deal.
It's awesome, but he's not thrilled about it. He realizes that she's been keeping a lot. He realizes she's been keeping a lot from him, and she makes a quip about like keeping the enemy in the dark, and he has a great line about like, fuck it, dude, I'm not your enemy. Like, were you ever normal? Like, what is this? You're damn it, Sloane.
Damn it, Sloane.
But it's a major coup. Heaton Harris begins gaining massive traction, and it comes down to just 4 votes that they need. So they're doing a really good job at this point. Like our little David team, as in David and Goliath, not as in you, David. We're starting to look like we could win. And this is the point, and that of course is the point where the enemy firm makes the decision to go after Sloane herself, to attack her as a person. And I believe too, I want to go back a little, like, tell me if you covered this, but remember, like, you were giving a lot of questioning to me about why did she throw the debate, right?
I'm still really kind of confused about it. Like,
well,
I wanted to put Esme up. You were saying that it was to get them to attack her, right?
Here's my best theory, or like here's my explanation. Like, she already knows she's gonna make Esme she's gonna out Esme and make her the face of the bill, right? That's gonna be done anyways. So if you look at it, the question you were asking me is like, well, then what is the purpose of throwing the debate and, like, quote unquote, pissing on the Constitution and making, Sloane make herself look bad? Remember, she never does anything without reason. And this was a tough one because it seemed like you could just do the Esme move without throwing the debate and still get the same result. The best I can come up with is that, again, at this point, we know that it's going to be feminists are going to be the white knights charging across the hill on a flank against the NRA.
Right.
And so maybe by Sloane intentionally drawing fire against herself as a person is meant to rile up the feminists. She's going to lure the enemy into making it personal against her. And to the feminists, that's going to look more like big, bad, daddy gun patriarchy trying to put a woman down.
Well, I mean, she did say it was a shell strategy. That the whole point of this was
she said it was a shell. Yeah, she said it was a shell game, which I love. I got massive bonus movie watching points for you here, sir. You noticed something when we were rewinding to like check some other shit, but you noticed something really great. It's another one of these totally cool little fine details. Is there's a shot here where we see now at this point in the movie, we're starting to see like montage scenes, and we're seeing that Esme is like, again, like you just said, like going on all these interviews and stuff. And we see this one scene in like some kind of like a hotel lobby where they just have like, what's going on the news on this huge like Jumbotron kind of thing. And it's the camera is slowly zooming in on what's going on the Jumbotron. But there's actually something else going on in this scene that you pointed out. And again, like we were going back and forth. We were just trying to research something else. But you noticed that the guy who's about to become very important in the next scene is seen right here.
Oh, yeah.
Remember? And you only see him from behind. But also, if you look at that zoom, if you look at it carefully, like by the time it centers, it's him looking directly parallel at Esme's face on the screen. It's great.
Yeah.
Now in the next scene, we're gonna find out who this guy is.
Yeah. So Esme's walking out of the lobby of some building and bumps into somebody, and it seems like a really nice guy, and he realizes that she dropped a pen. He goes to try and catch her, but she had already run out of the building. As she runs out of the building, some guy comes up to her with a gun and starts screaming in her face. And obviously, this is like some extremist type guy who'd seen the big fight against guns, and he's like screaming, "You want to take this away from me, bitch?" Blah blah blah. He shoots the gun up in the air, and she's freaking out, and she like goes into the fetal position because she's reverted back into high school where she was at the shooting, and the guy that had bumped into her in the lobby happens to come out trying to give her a pen back, and he happens to be a gun-carrying American that shoots the bad guy. And I think you were really excited about this shot. That he needed, like, what would you say? He needed his own movie.
I think in the way that he's framed, like I feel like he's the star of a different movie that just happened to bump into this one. Yes. And this is great. I mean, this is great. Obviously, we're super happy that Esme doesn't get killed, but it's totally fucking bad for the Heaton Harris bill, because all of a sudden the gun lobby can say, see, here's, like their whole mantra is like the best defense against a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And in this case, not to throw my political beliefs like into the mix, but I would just say a broken clock is right twice a day, right? But it's extremely bad for the bill, even though it shouldn't be. And that also like turns my crank, is because the gun hero in this case wouldn't have been affected by the Heaton Harris bill. He would still have been allowed to carry his gun. No problem. Possibly the crazy guy with the gun wouldn't have been able to get his hands on a gun.
Well, I think that's the where this kind of argument gets neutral, because I think Sloane even says, he wouldn't have been hit by the Heaton Harris bill. This is exactly what the Heaton Harris bill protects, versus the antagonist team is like, see, this is why the Second Amendment's important, that people can go out and own guns and protect the crazies us from the crazies out there. And this is where the movie sets kind of like a stage where things get kind of static, I guess, where everybody's kind of head to head at this point.
I feel like in reality, I feel like this would have been a net wash. It simply would have put the pro-bill people firmly more pro-bill and the anti-bill people just firmly more anti-bill. You could say that it's polarizing, but in the fiction of the movie, it doesn't wash out like that. In the fiction of the movie, this just makes everyone say, like, we really need guns. We really need guns. Yeah. And all of the gains that the firm has made are just, like, washed away by this event.
Yeah.
They start losing. We start losing votes. Like
this is our like low point in our story for the protagonists, I guess. Like this is where the good guy team is kind of like feeling that they've fallen.
Yeah, this is the darkest before the dawn kind of moment, because I think like we're trying to set up the end of Act 2 and get into Act 3.
Right.
And you always want to have the audience like wondering like, oh my God, the hero's really got problems now at the end of Act 2.
Yeah.
Last thing to say before we go into the end game is that the enemy they smell the blood in the water. Connors is just saying like it's like 7 fucking Christmases all at once.
Yeah. That really reminds me of the Veep episode when the NRA came to save the election or whatever.
Veep. You said Veep. I just wanted to make sure that was heard.
Yeah, it was Veep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, where they have like the most nightmare candidate and he's losing, and then he's like shoots himself or something, and they wake up and they're like, oh, this is terrible. We're gonna lose. And they wake up the next morning. There's posters all over the place for them, and they're like, oh, it's a Christmas miracle. The NRA. Like this scene. I wonder if Veep got this from this because it would. This movie I think came out before that.
Thank God. Thank God for the NRA. It's a Christmas Miracle is literally, I think, on my top 5 of my most remembered and laughed hardest at moments in the entire Veep series.
Yeah. Yeah.
Number one though is like something about like there's some like issue that they're tackling that's like really like tough to do, and like is giving them all a bunch of headaches, and someone says like, God, I miss abortion.
Yeah.
That's always going to be my number one.
Yeah.
Sloane knows that now is the time to put the enemy trump card into their hand. Remember, she prepared that, and it's the travel document that she filled out in her own handwriting, which she didn't need to, but did intentionally. And so she makes the call to Jane the Mole. Jane is the blonde lady with the glasses that everyone was really surprised didn't come with Sloane to the new firm. But if you were paying very close attention, you would have seen that Sloane arranged and had some kind of conversation we were not privy to right after she made her decision and before she arranged the coup. So that's when they made these secret arrangements and planned all this stuff, or at least Sloane gave her instructions to Jane the Mole. The call itself is very simple and also doesn't give anything away to the audience. It's very nice. She makes the call. Jane picks up. Sloane says, I didn't think that you would pick up. Jane says, you got the wrong number. And that's it. So as the audience, we haven't been clued into anything, but that was the code phrase. That was the code phrase, plus 5 points for having a dirt simple code phrase.
Yep.
And that puts in motion the delivery of the trump card. Jane will now, as the enemy is looking for dirt on Sloane, Jane will, while pretending to think about it, that is really difficult. It would be really difficult. And then pretends to have like oh, wait a second, I remember something. And she presents them with the document, which is enough for them to say like, yeah, we could get her on ethics. How do we do that? We'll have to get a senator to go after her, right?
Yeah.
Now, we don't see it. Again, this is like stuff we're going to find out later. But Sloane puts her ex-NSA intel mercenaries onto Waterston. That's the head of, I call him Waterston. It just happens to be Sam Waterston from Law and Order, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just calling him the actor. I'm not going to try to remember his name. He's not that important in this movie. But she has her mercs surveil Waterston so that they can capture the meeting that he has with Senator Lithgow, which again, right, yeah, just call him Senator Lithgow for now. And that's her trump card that she now has in play. So now we go all the way back to the future. Gotta get back in time, which is the hearing, the framing device. They are waving this travel doc interface, saying like, look, this is your handwriting, right?
Yeah.
Which they think that they have just lured her into perjuring herself on, but she actually intentionally perjured herself on. But they have that on her. They have that. She is in breach, and they have the evidence. They also have her on planning to use illegal surveillance. She lies about this as well, and especially like
they don't have her on using surveillance because she claims that she never used it because Merlin had said no, and then Senator Lithgow asked her, "Have you ever used illegal surveillance?" And she says no.
I know, but notice that she stops and like really like looks down and thinks about it, and you almost have to imagine that internally she's suppressing a giggle.
It's definitely like, well, this is my number 3 best tradecraft, and I I know that you put this as your number 1 was planning the document.
It was, yeah, I did, yeah.
I put this as my number 3 because I don't think she had planned this out, because there was that scene where she threw everything off the table just before making the call to Jane, and she was really upset because at this point she had realized she had to throw herself under the bus and would probably face like prison time. And I think she planted the document as like an ace in the hole if she had to use it. In this whole movie, we didn't really discuss this very much. This whole movie, she's playing probabilities. You know, like it's not that she's orchestrating everything, and that's why I really love this as a spy film. Most spy films, it's like, oh, spy master versus spy master. I have everything under control. This spy master has this under control. This spy master has this under control, and they're playing chess. What I love about this film is it makes it much more realistic, where you have a spy master that is playing probabilities and watching how things play out and then adjusting towards those probabilities. Like, her ability to adapt to situation is like uncanny. And I put this as my number 3 because this one isn't something she had direct control in. This is just kind of like an ace in the hole that she had planted in case they were gonna like she ever had to. You know what I mean? Just looking at the way she operates in the whole film, she's very meticulous and she's very aware of things going on, and she watches like how the waves develop. And this is why I think she might have predicted that someone would have attacked Esme, and maybe have not predicted like Boy Scouts saving Esme. You know what
Right.
I mean?
I mean, there's an understanding that she can't predict every event that's going to happen, but it got my number 1 tradecraft, not to relitigate it, mainly because she basically developed this plan before she even accepted the job. It's not like she decided to accept.
Yeah,
It's not like she decided to accept the job and then figured out how to win. She thought about it, she figured out how to win, and then she accepted the job.
No, she accepted the job and then signed that paper.
But she already had it in her mind.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It's not like she accepted the job and then sat down and said, "Okay, now that I have the job, how am I going to win this thing?" Right. She's walking, she's thinking in the car, and she's walking back and forth in her hotel room. She makes her decision. She picks up the phone, says, "Hey, if Socrates didn't write anything down, how do we know like what he said or whatever? We got to talk." And that happens to be the talk with Jane, and that's where she places everything into place. She hasn't actually like left the firm yet. She's done it all in advance. She didn't even sit down at the chess table until she had figured out what her checkmate would be. Now, I grant you, she doesn't know how the entire game will be played, but she has this thing in place that she can use. That's the big explosion. Anyways, enough about that.
Yeah.
But it's my number 1. It's your number 3. We're still a team. I still love you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No animosity here. Yeah. Next, she makes her statement that she confesses she believes the bill is the right thing to do, and but she also confesses that when she took this job, and this is really important about the story of our hero. She confesses she took the job to win, that she wanted to prove that she could win, and took on, like, you brought up this I guess David and Goliath allegory here, where she wanted to be, she's always been at the top of the hill and been able to swim with the sharks, but now she wanted to go down and win against the Goliath from a smaller standpoint, where there
she wanted a crack at Goliath, and that it was her ambition and her obsession with winning and her desire for a shot at Goliath. Like, she's trying to say, like, look, I really do believe this is a good thing, but it's not why I did it. I didn't do it because I'm a goody two shoes. I did it because I'm a fucking jerk that, like, really, really, like, wants to.
And she says this. She says this after she sees Esme in the audience, because early in the film, Esme had left the team and flown off away, and Esme shows up for the hearing, and I think this is something. This is the turning point in her character, that she's not just this like cold shell of a person, And we also see in the hearing, we didn't bring up them bringing Ford into the hearing, where Ford could have sold her out. This is important also, because she had prepared. This is how much prepared she is for anything, right? She's not orchestrating everything. She's prepared for everything. And she assumed Ford, the escort, was going to sell her out. And he lied to the Senate. We're not talking about lying in just a regular court, which is already a big deal. She lied to the Senate.
Oh, you think she's surprised? You think she's surprised that Ford doesn't sell her out? That's interesting.
Yes, because she said to her attorney, just let it play out. It's going to come out.
Yeah, I like that take. That's a good take.
Yeah, and so, like, that affected her, right? Where there's like a line earlier in the movie where she was just like, I lied because I had to. You know what I mean? And I think she said that to Ford when they were in the hotel. Like, I lied because I had to. You know what I mean? Like, so she's obviously had a life of where she had to put on the performance, be like this cold, like, calculating person. And here, Ford doesn't sell her out. He shows loyalty to her. Esme, after everything she did to Esme, shows up in solidarity for her.
That's true. Spiritually, these are really important, but tactically, it doesn't like change anything. She's still gonna do it. I mean, she's still gonna do what she's gonna do. She's basically like crucified herself.
Crucifixion, I don't think was what she had planned because of Esme. I'm talking about, like, her point of coming out and, like, confessing who she really was. That she's there because she wanted to win and show that she was the best lobbyist in history.
And that she deserves censure because she crossed the line. She endangered people. She did things that were wrong. She did them intentionally and willfully.
Right.
And so it looks like, and you want to talk about darkest before the dawn, this is about as dark as it gets. And then she drops the bomb.
Yep. And what is that bomb?
That bomb is the cockroach obtained surveillance of Waterston and Lithgow.
Yeah.
Planning this whole shit out. And again,
and Lithgow is heading the hearing.
Right. Yeah. So it's great. It's a great, like, I don't know, like, have you seen any other movies where, like, the whole time, like, it's like, I don't know, it's just like one of those, like, no, you're on trial, motherfucker.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic twist. I saw that some critics were kind of like pooping on it as far as it being like kind of like unrealistic, but liking the rest of the movie. I mean, you do have to consider her again as like a Sherlock Holmes level intellect to buy into all this shit, but I totally buy it. I mean, I buy it because I buy it because I like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's basically just like blown up. Like, she's got the gun lobby, the enemy agency, and the I don't want to say that Lithgow is an evil person here, but he's part of the rot. He's part of the people that can be influenced. And like my favorite, we talked about other movies about lobbying. My favorite line one of my favorite lines of all time is from The American President, where Michael J. Fox punches a Pepsi can and says, "Just vote your conscience, motherfucker."
Yeah.
That's all I want. That's all I want is for our congressman to just vote your conscience. Like, that's just do your fucking job.
Yeah.
But anyways, she's annihilated herself, but as she's done it in such a way that she has also blown up the gun lobby, the enemy agency, and the senator, and the bill passes. Basically, she wins by losing, which is kind of a cool way for a movie
Well,
to
yeah,
work.
I mean, like, you know me, I love the self-sacrifice characters. She threw herself onto the bus to win. And that's why there was that scene where she, like, threw everything off the table and was so upset because she realized that she had to basically, like, get herself imprisoned. You know, I really enjoyed that, you know, where it was just like she was willing to throw away everything for the win, you know.
So I want to go deep into that for a bit before we go to debriefing, but I see that you still need to flag your number one.
Oh, that's
best
right.
trade
Yeah,
crafter.
number one best trade craft, which we kind of discussed earlier because this was also one of Todd's best trade craft. But I wanted to save it till later. While Sloane is throwing herself under the bus, our mole Jane walks up to Connor, or in the audience behind Connor, says that she wanted to discuss her future. And Connor's just kind of like, this is not the right time. She's like, oh, I think it is. And she hands him a note and says, I'm putting in my resignation. Academia was like more my suit, you know. But he pulls out the note. It's the note that Merlin had wrote and given to Sloane. And on the front side, as we discussed,
Way at the beginning of the movie when he recruited her.
when he recruited her, yeah. At the front, it says, conviction lobbyists can't only believe in our ability to win, but he flips it over and it says the name of their firm offers you $0. So this is where we discover Sloane had done all of this for free. Like
This
this
is a
entire,
very nice fuck you to Connors.
yeah, it's a very, yeah, it's
Satisfying because
very,
I
very
love I love the actor, by the way. I thought he was definitely like one of the highlight performances.
fantastic.
He was so despicable, but not over the top.
Yeah. Well, I put this as my number one trade craft where Sloane had planted Jane as the mole, and we already discussed this earlier. And I just love how well they played this out. That she was literally planted to work really hard for the other team. She worked really, really hard for them. There was, I mean, we don't see any amount of exchange of information.
She's perfect.
Presumably they did exchange information, but maybe they didn't. But literally, she plants this mole just to play her trump card, you know. And so this is my number one trade craft.
Excellent. So let's go back to before we go to debriefing. I wanna bring this whole. We've talked about the tactical and strategic tradecraft of the movie, but we can't walk away from a discussion of this movie without talking about what I think is the deeper meaning of Elizabeth Sloane's self-destruction.
Okay.
So I want to note that one of the very first things we see now throughout the movie, we're going to see her slipping her little speed pills out of her little cylindrical case, right? We're going to get this, we're going to be constantly reminded that she's pushing herself kind of beyond human limits. That's also, by the way, a weird, Sherlock Holmes kind of thing, because he also did the same thing. He was a drug abuser that abused drugs to try to push himself beyond human limits, right? In the very beginning of the movie, one of the very first things we see as she's getting ready for the hearing, and we haven't even seen what the hearing is about, we see her dumping the pills into the drain of her sink. And this is before we even know what the pills are.
Yeah.
And as she's walking out of her hotel room to go to the lobby, she drops her little cylindrical case into the garbage can. That's the last thing that she leaves behind as she goes forth into this hearing. Now remember, again, have to underline this. At this point in the movie, we had no idea what the pills were or what the significance of the little cylinder was to her. But if you watch it again and you pay close attention, she's walking away from her life. She is actively choosing, again, like this is an act of self-destruction. Ford is important because it gives her a person that is outside of the business of lobbying,
Right.
that she can make some snarky comments about, like, look, I pay you so that I don't have to think about like the path I didn't take.
Right.
But we'll see a couple of cracks besides that. I mean, at that point, like when she's talking to Ford, she's just making it sound like, yeah, this is what I chose. Fuck off. I'm fine with it. But we will see some cracks in her armor along the way. The first one, remember right after she outed Esme and Merlin confronts her in her office, she is like really kind of cackling, ready to say like, oh, but guess what, boss? Guess what? I got it all figured out. We're going to win. And she's like pouring drinks and like, here, have one. And he's like, fuck this. You're a fucked up person. And he specifically declines to drink with her. And she looks genuinely sad and lonely. Remember, she is a person that we've seen in this movie put on a lot of different faces when she needs to. But we need to pay attention to how she acts when she's alone, which we don't actually see her alone very much in this movie. But in the few scenes we do, she looks sad.
Yeah.
And this one, if you go back and look at it, I mean, she kind of cradles the bottle under her arm, and she like kind of like makes
she
some
reverts when he confronts her, and he like really corners her. She's like, well, I guess I'm a piece of work, and she spins around in her chair, like reverts into like she's really proud of herself. But
right.
Later when he leaves, she like holds the bottle like a hug, like she's hugging
like almost like a teddy bear.
Yeah.
And she almost like makes a move to take a drink from her glass, but then she doesn't, because she's kind of, she's thinking like, oh, what's the point? What's the fucking point?
Yeah, this was her moment that she was really excited to make the big reveal of her big victory and her big spy master points. And this is when she's starting to learn who she really is, type of thing.
And it's immediately after that she has another of her encounters with Ford, where she actually like kind of goes for him in a way that like is a more of a like, not just a I need to get, I just need to get my orgasm and like move on so I can do my job the next day, but like more of a like I need you. And in that moment of intimacy, she becomes terrified. She pushes him away. And again, she's feeling her loneliness very acutely. Later in the movie, the attack on Esme is going to make Sloane feel really crappy about herself.
Yeah. Especially like the things that Esme said to her. It's definitely like an eye-opening experience.
Right. So this is the moment where the protagonist is confronted with the actual human cost and damage that can result from her single-mindedness. So I would call that the protagonist's flaw, right?
Yeah.
And so once she's overcome that flaw, then she can go ahead and proceed and like win the movie. So, she has a breakdown in the office. Like, again, this is after, dismissing everyone. And I think it was, again, a conversation with Merlin, who, we've made a lot of, like, cracks about him being a stand-in for the stupid chief, and the damn it, Sloane. kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
he's been a good sounding board for her in terms of like, or he's been a good mirror for her in a couple of key moments for her to see just how damaged of a person she is.
Yeah.
And again, that breakdown in the office, this is right before she makes the call to Jane to put her final thing into play. Her breakdown in the office, this is not just her looking sad and lonely. This is her like freaking out. Like freaking out. She like, throws all the files off the desk and blah, blah. And it's not a performance for anyone. This is again like one of the few moments we see her by herself, and in fact, I don't think there's very many moments in this movie where you see her by herself where she seems all right.
Like
It seems like
yeah,
it seems like she only really seems like an all right, all together person when she's around other people.
right.
So also, let's note that that breakdown came right after Merlin's last thought to her was like, you could just walk away. So what I think is going on, when I first saw the movie, this felt like really immediate and profound to me. Maybe now on future viewings, it's a little harder to distinguish, but I still think it's there. I think that she went after Goliath because I think she wanted to take herself out. I think she wanted to destroy herself. Like you said again, like the self-sacrificing hero. But it's not just I'm sacrificing myself for the greater good. It's I'm sacrificing myself because I have become a dangerous thing that needs to be destroyed.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense because
Right?
that's why she denied the NRA contract.
Right.
Because when the guy says to her, "You have a reputation of just not caring," and that really woke up something in her, and that's not who she wanted to be, and so
I
she
think,
has
I
to.
think there's a one of my favorite fantasy stories involves a woman who is carrying a sword from like dimension to dimension, and this sword is insanely powerful and insanely dangerous. It's just something that really should not be. But the hero character like explains at one point like the only reason that she carries it is because it can't be destroyed. It's too powerful to be destroyed, and it's too dangerous to be left lying around. Like
Right.
she's the only person that she trusts to like hold it. But like if she could destroy herself and destroy the sword, like she probably would.
Right.
And I hope that makes some sense in what I'm talking about. Like I think that Miss
Well, I
Sloane,
think it does.
I think
I
Miss I
because
think Miss Sloane realizes that she needs to be taken out, and she knows that nobody can do it except for her.
right.
She even makes this final note in the in the epilogue when talking to the lawyer. She says like career suicide is preferable to suicide by career, but someone's got to stop me, and none of you motherfuckers can, so I'm
Right.
just gonna have to do it for you.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And then
That's
last, if the theory, which I've only lately been introduced to, and like I'm looking for in different movies, someone floated a theory past me recently where the last frame of a film contains his thesis. If that's true, the last frame of this movie is Sloane walking out of the penitentiary. So I guess it's her walking out of the machine.
I see.
All right, so David, do you think we're ready to come in from the cold now?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Agents, please report for debriefing on this operation. The director will see you now.
This is a 5. This is a 5 for me. I love this movie.
Yeah, me too. This is
It,
definitely
it
on my top
could it
list.
possibly maybe be a 4.5? Maybe, because maybe there's only so many times I need to see it. But it's just pretty much perfect. It's waterproof, script wise. It's got fantastic performances, and the casting. One thing I always look for in casting too is like that the primary characters should not be should be primary actors, and the secondary cast should be secondary actors, and the tertiary cast should be tertiary actors, so that everything just lines up and the audience always knows like who to really pay attention to. And this casting is just fucking great. It's perfect.
I agree. I'm definitely giving this a 5. This is definitely amongst my top spy films. When I brought this up to you, I was saying this will get our feet wet for a Good Shepherd. There's so much subtlety and detail in this film. It's ridiculous. Like, even though we've torn this film apart, we did not go over everything that you could talk about. And politically, cinematography, or I guess the filmography, whatever you would call it, it's amazing. And I completely agree. This deserves a 5. But
yeah, well directed, well cast, well acted, well scripted. Just there's nothing wrong with this movie.
Yeah, even if you could find something wrong, it's like negligible.
All right, let's hit in just quickly, because I think we're running a little over time. Over our worst tradecrafts. What do we got?
So again, it was really difficult for us to pick Tradecraft. My number 3, the escort liability. She should have noticed the change like around the time that she had left the firm.
I think that's a really solid catch, dude.
Yeah.
What's your number 2? Let's just hear your number 2 and number 1, and then I'll hit mine.
My number 2 is the other team should have known that she would have been watching everybody and should have had a backup plan for the mole. But I don't know if it would make a good movie for that. My number 1, her throwing the debate. I'm still not sure why she did it. I mean, I get it. I mean, we discussed it, but I'm still not sure.
Yeah, we had to do some twists and turns to try to possibly figure out how that might make sense.
Yeah.
My number 3 worst was taking the intern along. I don't trust that guy.
Yeah.
I don't have anything specifically against nerdy guys with glasses, but it just seemed like he just seemed like just a weak point. Her barium meal could have been quite more inefficient. Remember, surveillance is expensive, so instead of having a barium meal that goes out to a set of people and then you have to have all of them watch to see what they do with it, narrow it down. If you're a more professional trained spy, you would have done it that way. And my number 1, easy, is the NSA mercs didn't need to explain the cockroach to a civilian.
Yeah.
Over to my... What's that? Yeah, over to my best. Yeah. My number 3 best is how she managed to worm her way into getting to know Esme. That was really smoothly done. Very, very tradecrafty. That was the work of a practiced professional. Number 2 is the whole way that she managed the question and answer thing in Wisconsin, where she knew that the enemy team was possibly one step ahead of her on knowing who her plant was, so she went one step ahead of them and got her backup plan in place, and how she smoothly traded and executed that. And then my number 1 is, it's a combination of things, but just preparing the enemy's trump card, especially doing that before you even take the job, leaving them all behind, which will be the delivery system of the enemy trump card. Just love it. And you are?
My number 3 was planning the incriminating document before leaving the firm. Number 2, planning the big speech outside to suss out the mole in her fancy outfit. I thought that was really clever. And then number one was planting Jane at the old firm, and that was very well executed.
Okay, and the movie on 1 to 5 redactions, 5 being a highly redacted movie, right? Means it has no basis in reality whatsoever, and that everything we've seen, we probably didn't see anything that really would have happened. One redaction is a very realistic spy movie. It means that what we've seen has probably not been redacted and totally could have happened. What do you think?
I don't think this actually happened, but I think it's very realistic, so I'm going to put this at a 3.
Why a 3 and not a 1?
Because this isn't based on a specific event.
Yeah, but it totally could have been.
All right. Well, let's go with a 2 then. Because
I'll meet you at 2.
Okay, or like a 1.5.
Yeah, maybe for a 1, it has to be like actually historical.
Because I think we put.
But do keep in mind, like the Nutella tax. That was like it didn't happen in America, but it happened in France.
Yeah.
The Heaton-Harris bill was based on an actual bill, although it was a bill that failed instead of a bill that succeeded. Do you think I could sneak you down to a 1.5, buddy?
You could do that. I mean, we put the company at 1.5 because they were all real events, but it was unrealistic with how they played out.
Good point. I'll meet you at 2.
We could do 1.5 or 2. Yeah, we could do 2. 2 sounds
Nah,
good.
you're right. If the company was a 1.5, this is a 2.
Yeah. All right. Well, I really enjoyed this movie a lot, and I'm glad we did it.
Me too.
And that's the end of our show. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us on Twitter at spies_like_us. Visit us on our website at www.spieslikeus.net. Find out about upcoming episodes. Also, what will really help us out is if you give us a review on wherever you found our podcast, either on iTunes or your Android app or YouTube or wherever you listen to us. Even if you didn't like the show, just give us a review. It'll help us, give us feedback so we can make the show better. And it can also help other people who haven't found the show yet find out about us. Hey, Moira, initiate Protocol 9.
Protocol 9 initiated. This podcast will self-destruct in 20 seconds. The preceding transmission sampled the songs Ice Cold by Audionautics, Enter the Party by Kevin MacLeod, and sound effects from freesound.org. Attributions and links are found at spieslikeus.net. Editing by Todd Hostetler.